All right, and joining us to discuss further is Matthew Graham. He's the founder and CEO of China-based VC firm Sino Global Capital. Welcome to the studio, Matt. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me today.
All right, so
what should we talk about?
Well, you've tweeted out that you have not invested in Terra Luna, and I guess so. We're hearing about this news. Just your off-the-bat reaction.
So sure. So a couple of things that were just said. This seems to me to be both a criminal and a civil matter, first of all. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on South Korean law, and I have not thoroughly reviewed the charges that were filed. But in my view, this potentially is both. Also, though, I don't think, I would have to check, but I don't think Singapore has an extradition treaty with South Korea. So two things I wanted to bring up right off the bat based on what was just said. The most important thing for me, I frankly view this as long-term healthy for the space. I see no reason why it would be a positive for reckless actors in the space to not face punishment from authorities, financial or otherwise, for their actions. So, frankly, my first reaction is good. I think it's a good thing. I think it's long-term healthy for our industry.
You didn't invest in Terra Luna, which, given how much hype, how hard and charismatic the Terra Luna community and Do Kwon were in courting VC firms, why didn't you invest in it?
Sure, we did take a hard look at it, frankly, and it failed on two counts for us. It failed on the economic model, which we thought made no sense. We couldn't figure out how the math works, and when I can't figure out how something works, I tend to think it's probably not me, it's probably them. So it failed on that count, first of all, and then frankly it also failed on what I would characterize as personal DD. So when we do our kind of like good guy check and ask around, it failed on that regard as well, frankly. So we took a hard look at it.
Wait a second, what personal DD, and what did you find?
I can't really get into that, but it was a hard fail in terms of the good guy check. So it failed on two regards, in two ways for us. Math didn't work, and we didn't feel like we were comfortable.
So Matthew, do you think that a lot of people, why do you think a lot of people gave Do Kwon not only the benefit of the doubt, but came out strongly to defend him anytime something came up and any questions were raised about how he did what he did? This is almost a cult-like mentality, if you will, but there were a lot of people, even in the investment community, getting tattoos on their arm, all sorts of things, doing the like, and then, of course, going on social media and attacking anybody who maybe raised questions. What do you think that was about?
Sure, I think this is kind of a human nature problem. I mean, look, Do Kwon is an enormously charismatic person. He's the kind of person who is going to be able to persuade and who is going to be able to develop a following. On top of that, crypto is uniquely social. So we do see with many projects and with many people these kinds of followings. And then if you combine that with the fact that, at least on paper, people had made a lot of money with the guy, then I think that kind of explains maybe some of that behavior. And it's a question of are you willing or are you capable of connecting the dots in a long-term way and thinking about if something's sustainable, what the tail risk might be, what the not even tail risk, but what the likely outcomes might be with a project of that nature, things like that. I think it can be very tough to force yourself to do that, especially when, at least on paper, other people or yourself are making a lot of money.
Well, I'm also assuming that you're not investing in Luna 2, so are you surprised about its continuation on that front and what developments may come out of there?
I haven't followed Luna 2 super closely. I would say I'm not surprised that we have Luna 2. I'm also not surprised that we have X, Y, and Z new algorithmic stablecoins that I see in my inbox every 2 seconds. I think there are a lot of repeat experiments in crypto. In many ways, that's a good thing because they can be little variations and things like that. But we do know that many projects even if they can be characterized in many or most ways as failed projects, many projects do tend to linger on in some form or fashion. That seems to be something that's very true in our industry, as opposed to TradFi, where you're bankrupt, you're done, whatever. Maybe the Chapter 11 or Chapter 7 proceedings take years, but you're basically finished. That doesn't always seem to be the case in our industry.
Do you think that the algorithmic stablecoin model should be in the dustbin of history? I mean, like, hey, would you ever invest in an algorithmic stablecoin?
I would say
and
that.
Are you invested?
I would say that the bar would be extremely high, and I go in with the assumption that there is going to be a flaw in the model and that ultimately the end stage is it's going to collapse. That's my default assumption, and it would be extremely difficult to convince me otherwise. And that's basically the case with every algo stablecoin project that we look at. That doesn't mean that I will not be convinced somehow, but it's going to be really hard to do that, I think. I'm enormously skeptical when people say they've solved impermanent loss or things like that. I just tend to think that's not a real thing.
Well, let's talk about some projects that you have invested in, and that includes Solana. FTX is a big backer. So I guess going into the Ethereum Merge, which is going to happen within 16 hours, and we've got a whole list of your portfolio companies here:
great.
Serum, FTX, US, Solana, Polygon.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
So with the merge coming in, and supposedly, potentially improving upon problems like efficiency, transaction fees, that's the hope at least. I wonder, what will the impact, what are your thoughts on the merge and its impact on other layer ones?
Sure. So I tend not to get super focused on price predictions and things like that. And I would say that our industry is still in such early days that I think people overstate the degree to which we're competing head-to-head with each other. For me, I view it more as this is actually a very special moment in the history of our industry, a seminal moment as Ethereum becomes proof of stake. And I really think it's something that we should take the time to appreciate. It's been a long time coming, and I think it's enormous credit to Vitalik and all the developers and everyone in the Ethereum community. That's my primary thought. I do have kind of a side thought, though, which is that, so I think it's no secret that we don't have a high opinion of the ETH-POW project, but I think it will be telling in one specific regard, which makes it worth a watch. It will be telling about how much market power Chinese old OG miners still have. There are a lot of these guys out there, whether they're living abroad or still in China. They're still heavily involved, and I think it'll be very telling to see how much influence they still have on our industry. So I think that's worth a watch, even though I really see no rationale for why that project should exist. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but it will be telling in that one specific regard.
You just said that, our industry tends to have projects that don't die. Sino recently invested in Bravo Ready, the creator of BR1 Infinite Royale, a never-ending battle royale game that uses NFTs and a win-to-earn model. Tell me a bit about this project and why you decided to invest in it.
Sure. I would say with our general approach for gaming, it's kind of like we view Web3 gaming as having 2 points that need to be addressed, first and foremost, for us to take it to the next level as an industry. Number one, the games need to be fun, which it sounds super obvious, but a lot of the games we've started kind of with a crypto standpoint, a crypto model, and things like that. And it's almost like the gaming was an afterthought for some of these projects. And so that's super important. And then number two, we need to have long-term sustainable token economics. So we're really excited for projects that are addressing those 2 pain points. And that's why we're thrilled to make that investment. We hope to find more gaming first projects to invest in. In my view, ideally, it should be NFT and token economics, and these things should be accelerating adoption of the game, making the game better in some way. It shouldn't be the central feature of the game. In fact, the end state, in my view, is 5 years from now, I think if you have successful Web3 games, you won't even necessarily think of it or know of it as a crypto game. You'll just think of it as, oh, I can do these different things in the game, and I have digital collectibles, and I can also use them in other games, and you won't even think about, oh, all this underneath the hood is operating on, Solana or Polygon or something like that. As a mainstream person, that might not even occur to you.
Yeah,
so I think that's the end state. You have to have gaming for gaming's sake. Underneath the hood, sure, it's got crypto stuff.
Just like how we use the internet today, and we don't think of all the cables. And
exactly, right? Might not even know it's TCP/IP or something like that. You don't think of it like that.